Just ask your friend. Hi. So the focus is AI and the creative industries, and I'm very grateful to Dr. Srividya for kind of covering a lot of context that I was anyway going to cover. I had thought of covering, but I'll probably skip through the first few slides, and these are also just because I when I'm talking I'm all over the place. These are kind of just to keep me on track. Humanities, of course, are at the heart of creative industries. So all of you who are working here, studying here, want to work in the publishing sector, arts and culture sector, media sector, and so on and so forth. So that's how the connection, economic activity. But I mean, even if you look at Tamil cinema, it's one of the largest cinemas, not only in India but in the world. Creative industries broaden our cultural horizons. So other than all the money that creative industries generate, they also broaden our cultural horizons in which other kinds of that word. But you will see it's good to be recognized for one's cultural heritage, one's kind of expression and so on. So Hindi film industry based in Mumbai is, for example, is considered a big part of India's cultural power, and all of us have are very, very well acquainted with all the content coming out of South Korea, the films, etc., Japan. So just also focusing on that aspect of creative industries. Creative industries preserve and enrich cultural heritage. So a few days before coming here, I was looking at, I watched the two films made by Mani Ratnam recently, Ponniyin Selvan 1 and 2, and I looked at, the trajectory of development. It took about almost 60, 70 years for the project to come together. It started in early 50s as a serialized kind of historical fiction, which was then novelized, then translated into several languages. The great MGR had rights to it, could not do it for a variety of reasons. Kamal Hassan acquired rights for him, again could not do it for a variety of reasons. And Mani Ratnam also has been toying with the idea of now that we have those kind of films, sprawling historical fictions, you will also see how creative industries are important for preserving and enriching cultural heritage. So this is where my talk really starts. Where does the intelligence in AI comes from? And I and my wife and we discuss these ideas a lot. Have been discussing these ideas a lot of lately. And we were discussing this idea of petrofiction by Amitav Ghosh, who talks about the fact from a literary criticism point of view of the place of oil in fiction, in our broader culture, in our movies and so on, and not only in terms of discovery of oil and so on, but its implications, broader implications. So presence of automobiles in films, all the war and violence around oil, which kind of forms the context of a lot of cinema and a lot of literature. And we were thinking if there is a similar kind of analogy that we can draw on in terms of the intense datafication of our world, if there is such a thing called data fiction. And of course it's there. A lot of our films, a lot of our literature, digital devices, online spaces are ubiquitous. They're always there, but that's the front story. And we started digging a little bit deeper into this term, petrofiction and data fiction, and the phrase, oft-quoted phrase of oil is the new data kind of started to make sense. And what essentially oil explorers did was to drill through the surface of Earth and take away, and what was actually, it didn't belong to anyone. It's our joint, it's part of the commons. They kind of, as part of colonialism, but also otherwise, enclaved these resources, extracted them, and turned them into various commodities. And this is the metaphor that perhaps works also for AI, where they're drilling through our cultural heritage. So for example, in Ponniyin Selvan, you kind of go and look, raid the archives of, rich Tamil literature and so on and so forth, and then the chat GPTs and so on start spewing answers. But I mean, that's not the problematic part. The problematic part is that it's enclaved by few corporates who have billions of dollars of cash to burn every month almost, right? So what is a joint cultural heritage, a human heritage, a matter of commons, is kind of enclaved by a few, equivalent of oil explorers of the year, and turn it into, various kinds of products. So this is, the point that I was making earlier, and this kind of takes us to this, very useful term used by Shoshana Zuboff very recently, surveillance capitalism. So a lot of people, critics of AI, don't even like to call it AI. They call it surveillance derivatives. So essentially, raiding all kinds of, informational, creative surplus that we're doing. So you're doing something on Instagram, that's data, and that could be turned into a product. Digitized an archive of some arcane literature, and that's, fair game for people to. Creative surplus, human surplus is making profit in AI. They're actually all burning billions of dollars every year as we speak. And this brings me to the point of power. So if tech companies have kind of trying to overtake or prevail upon the creative industries sector, one doesn't know whether Netflix right now is a content studio or a data company. How do we, kind of figure this out? And I'm very, very interested in society-market relationships, and we've always kind of, in India, there are a lot of phrases, but in Hindi, for example, it's bazaar and samaj, and one always kind of says that, we live in society, and market is so that we can organize our resources. I mean, there's a particular school of thought which kind of says that. Many people do not agree with it, but market is one of the ways in which we organize our resources and live together in complex and diverse societies. But what happens when market relations tend to overtake social relationships or cultural heritage and so on? The society pushes back. And this is, another idea that political economists have called double movement, right? So there is incursion of power from businesses, it could be from state and so on and so forth. State in this case is kind of absent because it doesn't want to or yet hasn't figured out a way to regulate AI. But I would like you to, kind of go back and look at Writers Guild of America and Screen Actors Guild and, American Federation of Television Radio Artists, who went on a 5-month-long strike last year, and their demands were many. From working conditions to wages to royalties and so on and so forth. But AI formed the crux of their negotiations with the producers lobby, and it's not the compensation, royalties, etc. that studios and producers had a problem with. It's the most contentious bits of discussion took place around AI. And the writers, for example, said it can't be treated as a source material. Right, so anything you generate from ChatGPT, none of the writers are going to touch it in Hollywood, the union writers, and so on and so forth. So you go and look at some of these things, and why it's important in our context is the creative industries are very organized, and the labor in creative industries is also very organized. But in the global South, interestingly, where a lot of this extraction is taking place without any kind of consent or compensation, things are not very, very organized. So therefore, it makes it very difficult to mount a challenge to incursion of technology or technological, technology companies and, venture capitalists and so on. So technology should work for the people. People should not be subservient. Worse, it may perpetuate the biases and exclusions of the past, and human creativity will forever push the boundaries of our shared cultural heritage. Newer ideas recharge cultures, and much like, just closing on the note of drawing that parallel between oil and data, it is non-renewable sometimes, and it very, in foreseeable future, AI engines are going to run out of data to crunch and process, but human creativity is freakishly renewable. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Faiz, for that excellent panel, where you
very difficult time. Everybody's stomach is rumbling and I'm the last speaker out here. So I'll try to keep it as short as possible. Upfront, I'm going to say I'm a very pragmatic person when it comes to this kind of things. And I'm saying that generative AI is a blessing, at least for English department at this point. Because many a times I've come across this question, what will you just have to look for new avenues, and that's something that we as people of Department of English have failed to do for a long time. And standing here in 2024, I think, I'm a lot more hopeful than I was in 2020. Now, rewind a little bit, in 2020, we were facing the COVID-19 pandemic. And for people, some of us who are working into curriculum and those kind of pedagogy development and those kind of things, NEP 2020 was a new bomb that was thrown on us. And the layoffs in terms of employment, you can think of what has happened in the past few years. Almost all major companies in the world have decided to lay off a huge chunk of human labor. But at this point, I'm seeing there is a new way in which we can think about it. One of which is I started getting an answer to a question that I asked way back in 2007. This is when I started my BA, and we had this concept of general English. And in a general English classroom, you'll be sitting with English students, chemistry, political science, so many classes will be combined. And we were taught Merchant of Venice, Shakespeare, Thomas Hardy's Under the Greenwood Tree, and I genuinely didn't understand what an economics student or a chemistry student is going to do learning Thomas Hardy. As an English major student, I couldn't sit in that class. Imagine the condition of other students. And this was a cycle that went on. And if you look at most of the general English classrooms, you will still see business communication, technical communication, and you are taught how to write a letter. When Microsoft Word can give you the template and all you have to change is the specific details, why is it that that thing is taught in a classroom whereas so many other things could possibly be done in terms of upskilling a student? And this was something that, even though we kept asking this question, most people were like, okay, that's general English, it's not important, we just have to fill the credits. That was one response we got. So this is in terms of English as a service department, in terms of the courses that we offer to other departments. What about English that we offer to English honors students, English major students? Shakespeare, Shelley, Keats, all well and good. I don't have any problem. As a matter of fact, I'm one person who still advocate for teaching Shakespeare in classroom. But the question is, additional value of this thing, what is the employability that it is bringing in? And post 2020, we suddenly started feeling the heat because many of these courses that we are teaching doesn't really lead us to any kind of employment as such. Most of it is in terms of teaching. The English student who's coming in here was thinking, okay, maybe I'll complete my BA, my MA, I'll clear NET, or maybe go for B.Ed and start teaching. The other one was content writing, technical writing. Now what? It's a huge problem. What about affiliated? English department works as a offering department, as a empty. English department can actually do a lot more. Teaching literature and so on and so forth for each discipline. Why is it that there are possible global language anymore? It is a global language. And with NEP, that's one more shift that is happening. Earlier, what we used to offer as ability enhancement courses, English was the default course out there. Not anymore. Now we can offer any of the Indian languages. We have the liberty to give German. What is going to happen to English as a service department if we are not ready to change? And honestly, generative AI is giving us a lot of opportunities. And since I'm working specifically with the English curriculum alone, what we have done is we have brought about a lot of changes in terms of assessment patterns. Now we have 2024 only, there was a paper that was published on artificial intelligence assessment scale, where we have different ways to use artificial intelligence to assess a student. You can use students to use AI as a co-author. You can ask AI to generate something and you can edit it, and that's one of the job opportunities that is there out there right now. And that's where you can actually see even creativity cannot be taken away by artificial intelligence by any means. One of the activity that I gave to my own students in this regard was, I was teaching them literary theory, literary criticism and theory. I asked students to create memes instead of giving them written assignments and essays and other things. They have to go read through Aristotle, they have to read through Plato, they have to create memes that will capture the key concepts that are built together by those theoreticians. They are free to use AI or they can use conventional templates. The ones who tried to use AI are the ones who struggle the most, because what they realize is they have brilliant ideas, but if they can't articulate it properly, if they can't give a good prompt, the image that is generated is not going to be sufficient. Now, expand it to written assignments and other things. That was kind of an eye-opener to them. And in that sense, AI is here to stay, and AI is here to make a revolution. And if you are ready to embrace it, it's all going to open up new avenues of creativity. And at this point, I'm going to disagree with you, ma'am. AI cannot write like C.S. Lewis. For that matter, even Shakespeare couldn't have written like C.S. Lewis. So there is new ways of understanding creativity. And in many of these submissions where we have used AI as a co-author, students came up with something that is really brilliant on one side. And second thing, I was personally so happy about it. They were also identify that when you are doing this, the kind of poetry that is generated by ChatGPT, the kind of example you gave, it kind of reminds them of certain social media poets, which was kind of a trend in maybe the second decade of 2000s. Certain people put themselves as poets out there. Basically what they were doing were ripping off of Shakespeare and Shelley and Keats. Suddenly, when we go and say this to students in class, they wouldn't believe it. It's their favorite online poet out there. But suddenly, when they were given the same task, students also started understanding his poetry as a much larger affair than that. So, I leave it at that thought. I think this is a time where English departments have to start embracing AI, not as something that challenges them, not as something that takes away their job opportunities or creativity or anything, but that can give new directions to this kind of ventures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Surya Kiran. I think it's time for me now to open the floor for discussion and any questions from the audience. But before that, I would like to just highlight a few points which was a running theme over all conversations. And I would like to borrow a few words from a few panelists. to say that, the logic behind AI or AI writing or in terms of creativity or accumulating data is always looking backwards, and it is extractive, it is not healthy, and it lacks creativity, right? And creativity is something that is in abundance when it comes to human beings. But at the same time, I've also been thinking quite a bit about, two issues which are related to this. One is that of automation, right? Throughout, for a very long time, we have all been worried about automation. Automation is going to take away our jobs, and we are going to be without any jobs. And connected to that is the idea of the death of the humanities department, the end of English, right? And the end of English has been coming for quite a few decades, and now finally, even when we are developing AI, we realize that we can't develop AI without the help of linguists or philosophers or people who understand language. And it is reductionist, it is extractive, and I would like some of you to contribute, any of the panelists to contribute to this conversation and probably speak to the students a bit more about it. Automation and the end of the humanities department.
So, it's not the technology one is scared of. You said there is a reluctance earlier in the panel of engaging with technology, especially for those of us who work in humanities. But if you look at creative industries, the industry is at the cutting edge of technology. You look at our film production, you look at the way our books are being kind of published, distributed in various forms, in various ways. Questions of accessibility, as Sir had kind of earlier raised. So it's not the technology, it's the circumstances under which technology is being developed. So humanities folks do have a role to play, but as of now what we are seeing is a very tech bro imagination of what humanities are. So input, create a few slides on cultural studies, and imagine people inputting that prompt. Several schools teaching the same kind of thing. I and my colleague who sits next to me can't agree on a definition of cultural studies. Dr. Srividya said, it's not really. It's essentially about the circumstances and who's wielding the technology and how it's being used. The Luddites were not against the mills. It was the larger, kind of structure in which they were finding lack of autonomy and so on. They didn't have a problem. Machine was the visible kind of manifestation of it, so they attacked it. They could have, before that they were kind of attacking the mill owners and, mill property and so on, but it's the circumstances of development, and like I also briefly pointed out, the lack of regulation. People have got a run of the field almost. Governments and states always kind of are trying to play catch up, but in this case they're not even trying to do that. So how is it that a Google or Meta or OpenAI can just do whatever they want without any kind of democratic oversight?
Right. So AI is definitely being
business
puppeteered by, or the humanities puppeteered by Silicon Valley. And it is ironically unaware of the circumstances, right? AI is unaware of context, and it is unaware of the context that it is produced in too. To Dr. Srividya, I want to say that something interesting that you said was, I want AI to do my laundry, and I want it to do my dishes and not replace me in terms of my creativity or the play that is possible. But why isn't that happening right now? Why isn't that happening, and why are we moving towards replacing creativity and play rather than having robotics which replace our labor, right? Like the mundane labor that we go through everyday life.
Those words were not mine. I quoted, it's very, very popular, especially on LinkedIn. You're going to see that quote over and over again. You asked a very good question, Dr. Cherian. I'm not aware of why we chose to do our creative work with ChatGPT, but I have a feeling, and this is completely personal, and I might be super biased like ChatGPT when I say it. What has happened with the time that I've spent on LinkedIn is that a lot of young people believe that content writing is a good way to make money. Can it write well? And while you can write, can you write well is a question we are not asking ourselves. So when a content writer who's been given a huge deadline and has a lot of assignments to finish finds some favor with ChatGPT being part of the partnership process, it becomes something that they use. By themselves, if you ask them to string a post on LinkedIn, they might struggle with it, but ChatGPT has made it easier for them. Secondly, companies that are hiring content writers are not really looking for a certain quality. I don't believe in flowery language in poetry or in prose. ChatGPT can do that, Kiran. So I think that's one of the reasons behind it, learning for us. I can make music, or am I doing it for work? And if I'm doing it for work, surely I need to get myself a little more experience. Because then it looks like you're pulling wool over people's eyes. You don't have the expertise, but you have access to technology. So I have a feeling that it's considered to be an easy thing to do while it's not. Because like you rightly pointed out, if you're not giving it the right questions, you're not going to get the right responses. But people are using it, and they seem to be doing a decent job. The amount of ghost writers on LinkedIn, not all of whom are writing original content, is testament to the fact that there is a school of thought that believes that using AI might be helpful. I've also met really great writers on LinkedIn, fantastic writers who use that gift that they've got. But if it's a question of employment, then ChatGPT definitely offers some options which might not have been there previously.
And in fact, in the book page is long.
To respond to this notion of automation, I would just like to recall what happened in the 1980 extent of protesting, right? The introduction of computers, saying that it would deprive people of so many jobs. Has it really done that? It hasn't. Now that, see, this automation and this creativity that you're talking about, let me tell you, say, I'm not here to glorify AI, but I'm here only to highlight that AI is in fact a means to enhance the level of human creativity. I can put it this way, we as teachers are very much aware of the fact that there is so much of mediocrity in the academic field. Right? This mediocrity, right, can be put an end to. In fact, it is put an end to some extent by AI, because whatever mediocre work is being done by the majority of teachers who are not all that inclined, I'm very sure is done with so much perfection by AI. So what do the human teachers have to do then? They will need to equip themselves even much more, which of course the AI cannot easily replace. So the AI, of course, is an opportunity, is a means for us to explore various angles, various dimensions of the human capabilities. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. That's exactly what we mean by altered or even demolished, I would say, by AI. And that's how we look at it. So AI is a sort of a means, right, to either alter or, right, a change, our attitude towards the so-called superiority of human intelligence.
Surya Kumar, we were talking about also while content creation through also comes at a certain expense of misunderstanding art with content. And to understand humanities with just being service. Right, and earlier we were all running behind STEM, right? Science, technology, education, engineering and medicine. Now STEM is incomplete without STEAM, without the arts over there. So what role does language departments or English departments have to play?
Project with Mozilla is on. So when we submitted our proposal, the response that came from the US team was quite astonishing. They were actually surprised that humanities people are going to engineering campuses or engineering classrooms, and we are not actually teaching them ethics. Who else is more equipped than an English teacher or a philosophy teacher than to do that? So there instead we are going there and teaching all this very mediocre kind of stuff. So when we proposed a revamping of the syllabus, they wanted to know, was this are you talking about just one institution? So they also did a survey of what is happening on a pan-Indian basis, and it's the case more or less everywhere. So our proposal was to instead of, their humanities courses account for 8 to 12 credits, varies from institution to institution, but 8 to 12 credits that are lost on absolutely nothing. So the idea was to integrate language learning, because a certain level of language proficiency is required no matter what department you belong to, but that language proficiency can be acquired through a certain kind of learner-centric pedagogies, which is the social and cultural background of every individual that is sitting there as a student, that should be taken into consideration, and through learner-centered pedagogies impart certain kind of social and moral values to them through the language courses. That's the way in which we can go ahead. And this, depending on the kind of case studies that we are using or the pedagogical tools that are being employed, can be tailor-made from department to department, and not just in management and other disciplines also work the same way. And that seemed to have caught the attention also. So at this point, we started off it as an Indian project, but at this point we are also gearing up to have a tie-up with Van Humboldt University, Germany. They are also interested in developing something similar. So it's not something that is happening in India alone. Other departments across the world also have started taking up this as a very serious responsibility of the department of English or cultural studies, or to a large extent philosophy, which seems to have been dying at one point, but there is a rejuvenation happening in that regard.
Okay. So I feel we as a human being tend to pit one thing against the other. Engineering versus humanities. Even in engineering, you are biological engineer, you are technological. These things we tend to pit against each other. Rather, I think, as Professor Shivaram also said about that AI against job, computer against job, and he's very rightly pointed out that what happened, we have been 40 years here, we are using computers, what has happened? And I'm sure with that, the nature of job will change, but job will not go away. Opportunity will come. Opportunity is there in humanities, opportunity is there in... And today, what we are doing is interdisciplinary, intradisciplinary, multidisciplinary. A lot of these things are happening. So it's not I feel it's not about humanities getting opportunity or engineering getting opportunity. I think it's overall there is a science behind everything we do humanities. We have termed it, right? So we have termed it because this gives you power to look down on something which others are doing. And you will feel better about you doing something, right? So we tend to look like that. We in IIT Delhi, I'll tell you that engineering, those engineering faculty members will not come to 5th floor very frequently, because for them it's not very intellectual, so to say. That floor is very human, and we will see 6th floor and 4th floor to be very reductionist. We will think that for them everything is like coding, or let's say, for them programming is everything, for them engineering is everything. We look down upon them, they look down upon us. So I think we have created this. Overall, if we think, we are all intellectually inspired, aspirated, and we are moving in that direction where we are looking for opportunities overall. But it's just that, I think humans grow that way. That way we tend to pitch one thing another against the other, so that we get this, that motivation, I don't know, is something which is related to philosophy of life. And that's how you try to categorize things, because our cognitive abilities are also like that. We tend to keep things in category. As simple example as that, when a child grows up, you tell them this is cow. The child sees buffalo, and it says a black cow. They will say it's a cow, but he said, no, it's not cow. Then they'll say it's a black cow. right? Mostly because brain categorizes things like that. So I think it's all boundaries which we create to, you know, make us feel happy, privileged, sometimes to look down upon somebody. But essentially, I think it's an opportunity for humankind and not for really humanities, technology, innovation, and creation. Why do we need to pit creativity against AI, for that matter? It can, if you aren't smart, you can draw good memes with the help of AI as well. If you are not good, you will not be coming up with that creativity. So I feel that it can help. If person is smart, then he can smartly figure it out, and smart prompts can be generated. So I feel that that is adding to it. It's not always like complementary. It's always in complementary distribution. It's not like parallelly running.
Thank you so much, Dr. Purva. And now I'd like to throw open the floor for question answers. Does anyone have any questions for these panelists? Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. It was a wonderful discussion. When Dr. Srividya was talking about Muse and the Mission, I was reminded of this one study from IIT Dharwad, where this researcher conducted a study, a case study, where he was presenting the students, a bunch of 50, with stories by R.K. Narayan, Raja Rao, and a third story was a story written by, created by AI. His intention was to see what type of stories these students prefer, and a majority of lot preferred the story written by AI. He structured the prompt in a way that it's set in India so that it will resonate with the students emotionally. And her point was on how creativity, when it goes into the hand of AI, loses this emotional resonance. And again, we had Dr. Shivram talking about AI and inclusivity, but the post-humanist era, we call it by many names. One is the age of misinformation. If the information fed is not right, how can it be very inclusive and reliable? Because the shift from the role knowledgeable other has been moving from human being to something, an entity that is trying to become human, which leaves us in a catch-22 situation. So I want to hear your opinions on this point.
Should I go first?
We'll wait for the other question, then probably you could respond.
All right. I wasn't aware of this study, but it does sound interesting. The study assumes that it was the emotional response of the prompt that students identified with. I don't disagree with that at all. Perhaps there is an emotional connect. My question with AI-generated writing, and AI and humans have come together to write a book called On the Road. It has also written an entire documentary. My issue with AI is when, or ChatGPT, I shouldn't say AI because this is the one that I'm most familiar with, is that when it writes something, it writes it very simply, right? So when you're looking for sentences that move you, and perhaps this is the old school in me speaking because I belong to a generation that did its research in the library and with books rather than a lot of technology because it was not available, I still go back to a book to actually get that feel, right? That's one. Two, the popularity of Instagram poets who will forever be unmentioned shows us that we don't want to perhaps put in the effort required to parse through a poem. Poetry by itself, and as a published poet I can speak with some authority, poetry by itself does not gain the same eyeballs that prose or even non-fiction does. Because poetry involves getting into what the poet is trying to say. And it's also about what's not printed on the paper rather than what is. I'm still skeptical about whether ChatGPT can do it. And like I said, my example of palm trees in tropical climate was convincing enough for me. But I really like that you talked about this research because it gives me a different point of view, right? I can equally argue about why AI is a boon in humanities, and I mentioned it democratizes education like nothing else, Coursera and things like that. But for me, the emotional writing of it, and not at the cost of saying, if you use ChatGPT, you are not intellectually superior. No, I'm just saying the effort that it takes you to go through 10 books in order to write one essay that you submit to your professor, versus going to ChatGPT and saying, give me a 2,000 word essay, I don't see a comparison at all. So I hope that answered your question to some extent. Yeah. I'm handing it to sir. Thank you. Professor Shivram, do you want to answer the question?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, what is the, yeah. Yeah, you want to speak one more question? Yeah, please.
Yeah, I am Tariq, I'm a research scholar, Central University of Kerala. So actually, one question is common to everyone, like how we can address this question of AI and consciousness, which is attacking on our intelligentsia and our consciousness, AI and consciousness. And my first question to Vidya ma'am means like, this is another common question, like can AI make machine conscious for doing overworks? These are the two common questions. And one separate question to Vidya ma'am is, like, ma'am, do you think that technology is musing us in the modern world? As Surya sir also said that as the humanities students, they are lacking for the content, and so especially in research for, so ChatGPT is providing a lot of content writing. So do you think that this technology is musing in this world? Don't you think that it is amusing in this world? And second question is, to what extent the question of argumentation is lost in the humanities, as you have pointed out in your presentation? And my last question is to Mr. Surya Kumar sir. Means as you are talking that means AI and AI, we can make AI as a co-author. So where the question of ethnicity lies in this, means when we are making AI as a co-author, so where ethics lies in this? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Let me first respond to the question that was posed earlier so that I can leave the rest to the panelists. If I have understood the question, let me rephrase the question and see and clarify, get the clarification from you whether I have understood the question properly, the one that was posed earlier. The catch-22 situation that she talked about. In the name of inclusivity, I'm just rephrasing your question. Please let me know whether I have understood that correctly. In the name of inclusivity, are we not moving from the human to the non-human? Or to the machine? Is that your question? Yeah, sort of. Yeah? Pardon? Yes, okay. Okay,
being. But now it is a machine. Officially, we have on machines. But this knowledgeable other, AI, it's an algorithm. Basically, it processes information, data. And all this information is all fed by humans, which was the knowledgeable other. So this becomes, if a human is to error, the machine is also to error. And ultimately, if again the resultant who needs an information, it's getting a misinformed result. So this becomes a catch-22 situation. So when we talk about inclusivity,
which is an See, you're talking about misinformation. Say, I'm just talking about the access. As far as inclusivity is concerned, right? The focus is on access, right? So my way of looking at it, or when I say post-humanist perspective of AI-driven technology, what I mean is that the technology can be made inclusive or is inclusive all by itself, but unfortunately, we have not yet optimized that scope for inclusivity. That is exactly what I'm trying to say. And let me tell you, all your questions, this is my way of looking at it. I'm not critical about it, but that's my observation. All your questions seem to be based on the already arrived at notion of AI. See, there's no finality about the notion of AI. right? It needs to be improved. It will be, whether you like it or not, it will be improved. So, we, in the name of inclusivity, of course, we are not moving towards misinformation. We can only say that we are gearing towards a situation where diverse needs can be fulfilled, right? So that's precisely what I mean by that is probably my, I would not call it an answer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, the question of AI and ethics. Okay, so when I mentioned co-authoring thing, it comes at two different levels. One is like purely in terms of classroom engagement. So it was also a concern because we have something in boards, they will rewrite the thing further that we tried written by human. And students are smart enough, ChatGPT is not going to work, no matter what you try, in which they use ChatGPT. That way we can ensure that even if that, we can ensure that like, some kind of effort is 2 years I've come across 300 plus AI tools. Books that are written completely by ChatGPT or similar tools, not just ChatGPT. They take the standard format, identify the syntax and the vocabulary and other things. We can identify obviously and making money out of it. So at least classroom I'm saying, if you want something to know, not happening. And nobody is patient enough to sit with a thesaurus and purpose. Let the original plot, the character development and other things still be.
Dr. Surya Kumar, are you?
Yes, sir. Because there is no way we can ignore it. Obviously. And we English teachers have, at least regarding net exam, what's the point of memorizing an equation makes sense? What's the point of me memorizing makes sense? So instead like...
In other words, see, let us make it very clear, put it human. Built on the strength of the individual memory to measure human intelligence. And so similarly, or in the same, for us to sharpen or to make our intelligence, which hitherto it has not served.
We have time for just one last question. I request you to keep it brief.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Sir, I am Aisha Shahjahan from KS Rangasamy College of Arts and Science. I am a second PG computer science student. I have a question for Surya sir. Professor sir, you beginning your conversation that you start with AI is blissful. Nowadays, AI is grab the opportunities from the people. They think like so. What is your perspective from this statement?
AI is a blessing.
Now,
I didn't get you. Come again?
You start the statement with AI is blissful. Nowadays, people think that AI is grab the opportunities from people. What is the perspective from this statement?
AI is not grabbing the opportunities. It's only replacing certain kind of jobs with new kind of jobs.
Okay, sir.
It's only like, when we think that like, as sir gave the example of computer back in 1980s, the same you can think of calculators also. We had teachers asking us, will you be carrying a calculator with you all the time? Well, I have a mobile phone which has that. Maybe with the exception of iPhones, but we still have it. So it's just like, it's just a changing scenario. It's a new world and we have to change with it.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I can only say, so though it's a definition, I can only repeat it and it holds good. Intelligence is not about accumulation of information. It is all about the ability of the individual to act purposefully, think rationally, and deal with the environment effectively, which is no longer the prerogative of human alone. Thank you.
It takes million of years, I feel. Not million is a little too much. The way human evolve and the way we think. So collection of information and memorizing thing. Perhaps coming from the place where we didn't have this technology of archiving. We had oral traditions, we didn't have writing, we didn't have scripts. So it's coming from those thousands of years and then gradually, as Professor said, that we don't need it now. So gradually with this AI and things that we can store in memory. So now I think thousands of years it will again take, to get out of that. But it's good that we are discussing along those lines. And last point to what ma'am said, that going to library and reading 10, 15 books is a nice thing. Again, I feel that the assignment which is made using that is going to be any day better in quality. But I can ask AI which 15 books to read.
No, because it has come up very often, I just thought I'll try and respond to it of, computers trying to take away jobs and failing at it and so on. But we cannot lose sight of the fact what kind of jobs, right? The Indian Silicon Valley, Bangalore, etc. Has created a lot of jobs. The service sector is, one of the biggest sectors anywhere in the world. But I mean, you would be hard pressed to, think of any big innovation or product that has come out of that industry. Essentially, these are code writers who are doing work of clients sitting, who are doing innovations, who are doing critical thinking elsewhere, right? So nobody's, kind of opposed to the march of technology. I'm saying you can use it to your advantage, right? You want to, kind of do code writing jobs for others, that's fine. But is that the kind of jobs you want? And there is a democratic oversight if the government so wishes, if the state has the wish to, become a Vishwaguru and so on, then it needs to kind of say that we will not do what the industry is pushing us to do. We have better ideas.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the panelists for such a fertile discussion. I think I'd like to conclude by saying this, that everybody would agree that the humanities is here to stay. AI is not stealing your job. We are still relevant, and we also need to understand that we were never really human and we were always biotechnologies, and what kind of biotechnology that you want to be and how do you want to develop, what kind of humanities do you want to develop is the question that probably we all take from all the panelists today. Thank you very much, panelists. It was a great discussion. Yeah.
Let us take a break, grab your lunch and come back to your day with renowned energy and focus. Let us go for a lunch break and come back after half an hour.